Hey everybody, and welcome to the start of a brand new series that I am so excited about. We are beginning a series right now called Can't Steal My Joy. Come on, in the chat right now, wherever you're watching from, would you just type that in the chat as a declaration that you can't steal my joy? Because joy is something I believe that we all need in this present season. Am I right? I mean, we need joy in our minds. We need joy in our spirits. We need joy in our lives. And that is why today we are going to begin to explore this together and declare as a people that you can't steal my joy. Because joy is something that we want all the time, don't we? I don't know too many people that are looking for moments of their life, looking for seasons of life where they don't experience and don't have joy. No, we want joy. But it is really remarkable to see people who have joy, who exhibit joy, who live with joy, even in the most difficult times. Because I think sometimes we think about joy and we think of it as being something that comes on the back end of things being good. Like it's real natural when good stuff happens. When you walk out of the office with your employer and they just give you a raise and you're like, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Come on, you got some joy because you just got a raise. Am I right? Like when that deal goes through in your business that you've been working on, been trying to figure out, strategizing around for way long, and then it passes. You got the joy down in your heart right then because good stuff happened to you. We somehow connect like good things happening in joy and think that the only time we can experience this joy is when good things happen, but that's not the case. I mean, there's happiness and there's nothing wrong with that. There's excitement and energy in those moments, and that's great. That's different than joy. I mean, come on, when good stuff happens to us, that's not the only moment or time we can experience joy. If so, joy would only come to people on weeks like Patrick Mahomes is having. Do you know Patrick Mahomes? He's an NFL quarterback, and he's incredible. Like, I'm not a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Like, I ain't got any necessary interest in them or that. But he is must-see TV. And this week, he just signed an extension to his deal for almost $500 million. That's $500 million with a B dollars. That's a lot of money, And we would think, oh, Patrick Mahomes got some joy this week because of that check he about to cash. And yes, he can be happy. But if the source and the root of our joy is just a circumstance, man, I think we've missed the idea of what joy is supposed to be altogether. So I want you to take some notes today. And if you want to write this down, get ready to do it. But let me go ahead and tell you, today, like you probably have already heard, we are releasing an app for the very first time, our version 1 of our app. It's available on the App Store right now, whatever device you have, go to your App Store and you can download the Believing app right there. And the reason I want to encourage you to do that is because in that Sundays tab of the app is a place for you to take notes every Sunday. Literally, over the next couple of moments, as I encourage you to write something down, you can type that in, those notes, right there in the app. So go ahead and download it, get it ready, because we're about to write something down. If you're ready, go ahead and type, I'm ready. Come on, type, I'm ready, up in that chat, because here's the first thing I gotta help you see today. That joy is not circumstantial. Joy is personal. Come on, write that down. Joy is not circumstantial. Joy is personal. Can't steal my joy. That's the title of this series, is it not? Can't steal my joy. It's way more than just some series title. I believe it's a declaration of faith. It's a declaration of conviction that no matter what happens, no matter what's going on, no matter whether it's a good day or a bad day, whether I get what I want or I don't have what I need, can't nobody steal my joy, because joy is not based on a circumstance. Joy is based in a person, and his name is Jesus. Come on, I already done started preaching and we just in the introduction to the introduction. But that's not my opinion. See, that reality that our joy is not based in a circumstance, it's based in a person. It doesn't come from my own thinking. It comes from the New Testament writer, Paul. See, for the next 6 weeks, we're going to study one of his writings found in the New Testament, a book called Philippians. And in the book of Philippians, you dive into it and begin to read, and you can't help but recognize how joyous this book is. You can't but recognize that it feels like the author, Paul here, is like writing with a smile, that he's encouraging people. In fact, in these writings, 16 different times he references joy and rejoicing and this joy that is available and this joy that is present. It is the theme of this book. And so for the next 6 weeks, we're going to study these writings. We're going to unpack what joy looks like and stop as we go through it when he really leans into joy. And so I would encourage you. Maybe you're thinking about something to read in the scriptures. Maybe you're trying to find, what should I read? What should I look at? Can I tell you a great thing to do? What if you read the book of Philippians with us for the next few weeks? It's short. It's only 4 chapters long, which I think compounds the concentration that Paul gives to joy and how clear it's going to be going through. So before we dive into that, let me give you a little background on the book of Philippians and the people that Paul's writing to, because that's what this is. This letter that Paul is writing here is just that. It's a letter that he sent that was then later turned into a book. But he wrote a letter to a group of people in a place called Philippi. Now, Philippi is a city in northern Greece, and it was a place near and dear to Paul's heart because he had started a church there. And he had been there a few different times and spent times building leaders and helping to reach people and teach people about the ways of Jesus and the hope found in the gospel. He loved these people and loved these places, and he understood their dynamics. See, their dynamics were unique. Philippi was a military town, if you will. A lot of retired Roman military people, military leaders, for one reason or another, found themselves living in Philippi. So there was a lot of patriotic nationalism, a lot of adherence to Caesar and his kingdom and all that would go on there. There was a lot of that going on in Philippi, which made it very difficult when Paul comes on the scene and starts trying to tell people that Jesus is king. See, Kanye wasn't the first one to say it. Paul was saying Jesus is king. And when he's communicating this message, he caught a little resistance at first because these people were so entrenched with the idea that Caesar is king. But God still did his work. The gospel still went forth. And Paul started what was a great church there. This letter comes about because Paul, a while later, found himself in prison, like you do. Sometimes you end up in jail. And that's what happened to Paul here. He found himself in jail. And the church at Philippi heard about this. They heard about him being in jail. And jail was very different than what we think of, because in jail, like Paul was in, you were under the guard of the government, but you were not under the care of the government. Meaning they made sure you were where you were supposed to be, but they were not responsible to feed you, provide for you, make sure you had clothes, any of that. That basically prisoners were at the mercy of friends, family, relatives, people who heard about their plight and would come and bring them what they needed. And that's what happened in the church at Philippi, and Paul here. Is that one of their church leaders came and brought an offering to Paul and said, we want to be a blessing to you. And so they traveled hundreds of miles to come and give Paul this offering and make sure he was doing good. And Paul took it upon himself at that moment to write this letter to take back, to thank them for their generosity, but also to give them updates on the ministry and how everything was going and tell them what was happening, to say, this has been happening and this has been happening. Yeah, I've been in prison, but look at God. And then he takes time to pastor them and to coach them and to encourage them throughout it. And it's a powerful, powerful thing that he does here. But I cannot help but make sure you recognize that all that he's about to do, all that he's about to write, he writes from the confines of a jail. I mean, he literally at one point says, listen, I may live, and if I live, that's cool, and if I die, that's cool too. Whatever happens to me, but here's my conviction. Can't nothing that happened to me steal my joy. Come on, they may take my freedom, but you can't steal my joy. They may not let me travel around and teach and preach like I was doing just a couple of weeks ago, but you can't steal my joy. That's what Paul is saying here. And he helps them to understand how you even do this. That if you fix your eyes on Jesus and on the good things happening, then can't nobody and can't no thing steal your joy. And he starts his whole writing this way. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, this is what Paul says very early in his letters. He's just done some hi, you doings, and good to see you, and tell your mama hi for me. And then he says this in Philippians 1, 6, he says, I am sure of this. He's got some confidence. I am sure of this. I am certain that he, talking about God, he who started a good work in you. So whatever good work that's happening in you, the God that started it is faithful and will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Right from the start, he gives them this unbelievable truth that is so important for you and so important for me, that God is a finisher. Whatever God starts, God finishes. He's not a God who just gets some stuff going. He's not a God that just has a grand opening and then backs away from the scene. No. But he's a finisher. He's a God who doesn't just begin something in your life, but whatever he has started, whatever good that he has launched in you, he will, because he is faithful. He will finish it. I don't know about you, but I love people who are finishers. Like, I have a special place in my heart for finishers, for people who, when you give them something, you can be certain that it is done, you know? Because not everybody's like that. Some people you give something to, and the minute you hand it to them, you're worried as to whether or not they will even take the first step, you know? You give them an instruction, you check on them an hour later, and they're like, what did you ask me to do again? You know, we all got people in our life that operate like that. The thing is this, is that that's why there's a special place in my heart for people that you can hand something to, give an assignment, give them a responsibility, tell them a time, and boom, it's done. Can I tell you, that's why I love my friend Caesar so much. I've been knowing this guy Caesar for years, and he is a contractor. He, frames and builds commercially and residentially and does this kind of stuff, renovates, remodels, all that type of stuff. And honestly, most of the work that we've had to do at our house over the years of living there, Caesar and his team have done. In fact, at our physical location on Summer Avenue, when we modified it from what it was into a facility that we could use to help do ministry out of, it was Caesar and his crew. They were the first ones that came in to help us with demo and the reworking that needed to happen here. And I love working with Caesar, and here's why. Because Caesar and I can draw something up on a napkin, and I can hand it to Caesar, and I can forget about it because it is done. He will call me if hey, I got a question about something, but I can be sure that it is done. And that's why C has a special place in my heart. That's why when people ask, hey, who should I call about this? I always tell them, you should at least let Caesar bid on it because he is the man like that. I love finishers. But I also know that not everybody's like that. A lot of us have people in our lives that we trust things to, and they don't follow through. We give them opportunity or give them responsibility or give them something near and dear to us, and they don't finish it. And that can leave a sorry place on the inside of us where we're worried as to whether or not all people will be finishers. And sometimes that can even translate into the way we view God. In fact, some people start to think that God is maybe like that he's someone who starts things but doesn't finish them. Like God's going to do this but not bring it to completion. And Paul is trying to encourage people. He's trying to encourage you and me right here from the start of this. And I want you to write it down. That whatever God starts, God will finish. Whatever God starts, whatever good thing God starts in your life, whatever good thing God starts in this church, whatever good thing God starts in our city, whatever God starts, God will finish. And that's confidence. So whatever you're in the middle of right now, whatever you're going through, you may be in the middle of a moment where you're experiencing loss. A lot of us are. A lot of us in this present pandemic, it is painful. It is difficult. We are feeling loss. Can I tell you, even if you're in a moment when you are experiencing loss, the one who started the good in you will bring it to completion. You may be in the middle of a moment where you feel betrayed. Somebody turned their back on you and you're like, what is going on with this? I don't know if good is going to come out of this. I don't know if good is going to come from it. If God started good in you, God will bring good through you. You don't have to let these predicaments steal your joy, because God will finish whatever he starts. You don't have to allow whatever your present predicament is stop you, sabotage you, or rob you of your joy. Because what God started, God will finish. And Paul knew this, and he knew this in jail. And so today I want to turn your attention for a couple of moments to 3 verses from Philippians chapter 1. You say, we just getting started? Or we just getting started? Let me preach. Philippians chapter 1, verse 12. With everything I've tried to help you get as background, let's dive into God's word today. Verse 12 says it this way, and this is Paul writing from jail to people in Philippi that he loved. He said, now I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me. Would you underline those few words? What has happened to me? Highlight that if you got a Bible around you. What has happened to me has actually resulted in the advance of the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to everyone else that my imprisonment, remember he's in jail. What has happened to me? I'm in jail. What has happened to me? I'm locked up. Got this Roman guard attached to me. What has happened to me? I got to rely on the generosity of people like you to come and bring me a little money so I can get a Big Mac because they ain't feeding me up in jail. What has happened to me, my present imprisonment, is in the cause of Christ. Most of the brothers in the Lord have gained confidence from my imprisonment and dare even more to speak the message fearlessly. What has happened to me? You know, whenever we experience difficulty in a moment, difficulty in a season, something happens to us and it's not good, these are the words that come out of us, don't it? What has happened to me? We start talking about all my problems. Got all these problems. What has happened to me? Nobody loves me. Man, I thought I was loved. I thought I was cared for, but what has happened to me? My industry, I thought this was something I was going to throw my life into, but now my industry it doesn't even exist, and I don't know if it's going to come back. What has happened to me? My suffering, my pain, my childhood. Oh, it wasn't good, and it was tough, and this happened, and that happened. What has happened to me? And what many of us do is we put all of our focus, all of our attention on what has happened to me, and we stop. What has happened to me? This is why I'm like that. This is why I don't have that. Oh, I ain't got joy because this is what happened to me. And what we've done is we've taken our attention and zeroed into what happened to me, and we stop rather than look forward to what might be able to happen in us, to what might be able to happen to us, to what might be able to happen through us and for others because of what happened to me, which is exactly what Paul does here. Paul doesn't tell them everything's fine, like I'm in this great resort and everything's like he lets them know where he is. But he also lets them know that I don't see where I'm at as the end of the road. I don't see where I'm at as the stopping place. What has happened to me, I'm able to see past it, but he tells them what has happened to them. Why does he do this? Because people are always impressed by your strength, but they identify with your struggle. I know that's weird for some of us, but they're impressed by our strength. They're impressed by how well you did, how much you have on your plate, how many things you're making happen. They're impressed by how well behaved your kids are. They're impressed by the fact that your grass looks like it never needs to be cut because you cut it so often. They're impressed by your strength, but they identify with your struggle. What connects you to other people is when you help them to realize you struggle. You see, most people think their struggles are setbacks, instead of seeing your struggles as the thing that might be able to be used by God to give somebody else hope. Because you see, when you can be in the middle of the struggle or on the other side of the struggle and help people recognize that I didn't allow that to steal my joy, or you know what, I had a difficult childhood, but baby, I got a smile on my face right now. Yeah, I ain't got mama and daddy in my life, but you know what, I got other people around me who are like mama and daddy. When you let them see your struggle and recognize that your struggle didn't steal your joy, woo, you can help somebody. See, nothing that happens to you can steal your joy. Come on, write that down in them notes on the app. Bop, 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 bop. Come on, somebody type this in the chat for me. Nothing that happens to you can steal your joy. You see, that sounds a little absolutist. What do you mean nothing? What if I create something really, really bad? Listen to me right here. Nothing that happens to you can steal your joy. I'm not trivializing what happens to you. I'm not lessening what happens to you. I'm not demeaning it. I'm not meaning that there may not be consequences. There may not be difficulties, that you may not need therapy because of what happened to you. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that whatever happens to you, nothing that happens to you can steal your joy. Because Paul is in prison. This ain't fairy tale prison. Paul is in prison under Roman guard. Caesar is king. Paul is in prison, relying on the support of people. He ain't getting his bread and water or whatever. Like, he's relying on people who may have heard without Twitter, who may have heard without the local news, who may have heard that he's in prison, traveling hundreds of miles by foot and boat and camel to come to him, to bring him a little something so he can get by. And he writes the happiest book of the Bible. He writes this letter filled with joy. Why? Because nothing that happens to you can steal your joy. But catch the other side of this. Anything that happens to you can spread joy. See, that's the good news in it. Anything that happens to you, anything that comes to me, anything that affects my life, anything that tries to take from me, your worst day, guess what? Your worst day can be used to spread joy. Tragedy befalls you. Oh my goodness, I know it's difficult, but can I tell you, it can be used to spread joy. Come on, you got a difficult season in life, sickness affects you, you lose a job. Anything that happens to you can be used to spread joy. And here is why. Because joy is found when you see purpose from your pain. Joy is found when you see help from your hurt. Joy is found when you see inspiration from your incident. Come on. Joy is not something that anybody can steal from you. It does not matter what you have gone through. It does not matter what you are going through. Yes, it's painful. And yes, I feel that for you. The problem is many of us are allowing the difficulty of our present moment to steal our joy, not realizing that can't nothing steal my joy, but I can give it up. See, Paul says this remarkable thing that I don't want you to miss at the end of these few verses here that I read. And he talks about this idea how many people have gained confidence because of what has happened to me. Now, that's not some mean and devious kind of gaining confidence. And I know those people exist. Some people smile whenever they see you struggling. I ain't talking about that. Some people are happy whenever they find out that you're not doing well. I ain't talking about that. That's wrong. And if you like that, you need to repent. I'm telling you. But I'm talking about a confidence that comes in people. A confidence that comes to other people who see you walking through a difficult season, see you walking through a difficult moment, see you walking through tragedy, see you walking through suffering, see you walking through pain, and you still got your joy. So here's my question for you. Who has gained confidence from your struggle? Come on, the struggle that you're going through. Who has gained confidence because of your struggle? Who is it that has been encouraged by the way that you have gone through the difficulty that you're going through? Whose spirit has been lifted? Whose confidence? Whose faith? Whose hope? Who's trusting in Jesus now because they see you trusting in Jesus in a difficult moment? They see you trusting in Jesus in a time when it feels like it would be easy to throw in the towel. Who has gained confidence because of your struggle? See, Paul's excitement in Philippians is rooted right here. That's why we got to spend some time today. That's why we got to kind of do some groundwork, because as we go through these incredibly hope-filled and joyous statements that he's going to make, where he lets us know that can't nobody steal my joy, you got to know where he's writing from. And what he says is this, is he says, my excitement is rooted in the fact that I see good coming to other people from my difficulty. You see, because God can use anything that you let him use. He can use your worst day. He can use that betrayal. He can use that difficulty. He can use that divorce. Come on, he can use them walking out on you. He can use your bankruptcy. He can use anything you let him use. And so let me pastor you for a second. Can I pastor you? That's what Paul did in Philippians. Some of you are like, I'm just watching you today. I don't really know if you're my pastor. I didn't ask you if I was your pastor. I said, can I pastor you for a moment? What's that mean? That means I'm about to get serious for just a second. I'm about to come up in your business for a second, okay? So buckle your safety belts. Write this down in your notes. If you don't want nobody to steal your joy, stop looking for pity. Stop looking for pity. That doesn't sound very nice, Mr. Preacher. Micah, I don't know if that's encouraging me. I'm helping you. Stop looking for pity. Because when you look for pity, watch me, that search can become your purpose. When tragedy happens, difficulty happens, some of us can turn and start to give all of our attention, all of our focus, all of our effort into trying to get somebody, somewhere, to have some pity on us. And what we don't recognize is in that process, we have turned the pursuit of pity into our purpose. And so we vent on Facebook about how wrong we've been done and about how bad all this is. And then we notice, because this is the way some of these social medias work, maybe you have noticed this, that people seem a little more drawn to the negative than the positive. And so then all of a sudden we start getting some comments up in our feed, and more comments than we've ever gotten in our life. And people are like, oh, that's wrong. You should tell him. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I'm so sorry for you. You get the comments. You get the little interactions, but with the little sad face because people are identifying with you. And somehow like dopamine kicks up on the inside of you, like you have received something because you went out and looked for pity. And then the next time something difficult happens to you, rather than try to recognize what God may want to do through it, what God may want to do for others through it, we go back to the source of our dopamine and vent again, and it wasn't even that bad. Stop looking for pity. Some of us, what we do is we withdraw relationally when difficulty happens, don't we? We withdraw relationally. We pull back from other people. And we say, I'm just going to get by myself and I'm going to get alone and it's just going to be me. And really what's rooting that on the inside is not that we're an introvert. It's not that we're just trying to be by ourselves. It's not just that we need some me time. It's that actually we want to be pursued by the people we used to be around because that'll make us feel better in our difficulty. And the reality is what we're actually doing is we're looking for pity. We complain, rather than recognizing that there may be something that God can do through this struggle. What has happened to me? becomes our cry. And then we look up. A few months later, a few years later, and it's like our life's work has become about this amalgamation of pity. I'm just trying to collect pity. If you don't want nobody to steal your joy, stop looking for pity. And write this down. Start looking for purpose. Yeah. Write that down. Start looking for purpose. Come on, somebody in the chat. Would you type this in right now? Make sure everybody sees it. Start looking for purpose. Because when you look for purpose, watch me, that search can lead to joy. That whatever happens to you, whatever difficulty, come on, whatever betrayal, come on, whatever pandemic and problem comes your way, rather than trying to comfort yourself with the pity of other people, if you will start looking for purpose and say, God, what is it you want to do in me? What is it you want to do for me? What is it you want to do through me? And maybe you start opening your eyes and looking around and seeing, you know what? My life, my story is encouraging them. I don't even know how, because I don't always feel encouraged. But the fact that I'm still going has encouraged them. And now I'm in a place where I'm helping other people, even in my difficulty. What has happened to me starts to turn. And rather than us stopping with a declaration of what has happened to me, we bounce from a place of what has happened to me. Can I tell you something about the joy you're looking for? The joy you want comes from discovering purpose from the difficulty that you don't want. Woo! The joy that you want, the joy that bubbles over on the inside of you, the joy that you want comes from discovering purpose in the thing that you don't want. How do I know that? Because I lived it. I am living it. I have at this moment seen God take every major difficulty I've lived through, and I've lived through a few. I've not known how I was going to go to school the next year. I've lived through it. I've lived through my parents getting a divorce. I've lived through it. I've lived through people betraying me that said they had my back, that said they were going to be there for me and betray me as soon as the first person turned their head. I've lived through it. I've lived through my son being born with a congenital heart defect and not knowing whether or not he was going to live or die and having to put his care in the hands of surgeons over and over and over and over again. I've lived through it. So I ain't talking to you as somebody who is unscarred, but I'm talking to you as somebody who has seen God take what has happened to me and allowed others to gain confidence in what has happened to them. You see, what has happened to me is not as important as who Jesus is to me. Oh, it's a difficult season. Okay. But Jesus said he would be with me always, even to the end of the age. What has happened to me is not as significant, is not as important as who Jesus is to me. What has happened to me is not as important as what Jesus is doing through me. Come on, Jesus wants to use this difficulty. Don't waste it. Jesus wants to use this loss. Jesus wants to use this trying season. He wants to use this pandemic. This pandemic would be a terrible thing to waste. What has happened to me? What has happened to me is not as important as what Jesus is doing through me. And here's the reality. Watch me right now. That you have to get for any and all of this to make sense. If your difficulty doesn't help others yet, whatever your difficulty is, if your difficulty doesn't help others yet, maybe you haven't trusted God with that difficulty yet. Maybe you haven't taken that difficulty and trusted God with it. Maybe you've taken that difficulty and collected some sympathy. You got some T's and P's, you know what I'm saying? Thoughts and prayers. Like you've received some stuff. Somebody brought you dinner, congratulations. But if you haven't seen your difficulty be taken and used to give others confidence, take it and to give others hope, take it and give others faith and peace in the middle of their difficult season, then maybe you haven't trusted God with that difficulty yet. See, people who let nothing steal their joy, they recognize something. That what I'm going through will either bring me pity or will bring God praise, but it probably won't do both. Come on, what you're going through, somebody needs to write this down, will either bring God praise or you pity, but it probably won't do both. So what you want? You want the pity or you want God to get the praise? Come on, do you want to see purpose in your difficulty or do you just want more pity in your difficulty? Because if you want nobody to steal your joy, you are going to have to turn this thing around and start looking for the purpose in this difficulty. What has happened to me? I'm in jail. But God's doing something here. What has happened to me? I don't know where my next meal is coming from. But God is providing, and the way He's providing is giving other people confidence. See, what you've got to do is you got to start looking for purpose. Come on, start looking for purpose. Start looking for purpose in the middle of being unemployed. Start looking for purpose in the middle of our pandemic. Start looking for purpose even though they walked out on you. Start looking for purpose even though there's sickness in your body. Start looking for purpose even though you feel all alone. Start looking for purpose. And then one day you're going to wake up and look in the mirror and you're going to say something. You're going to say, what has happened to me? What has happened to me? But it's a different what has happened to me. Because you're going to say, what has happened to me? Because I'm going through difficulty right now, but it hasn't taken me out. I'm going through loss right now, but I'm helping others in the process. What has happened to me? What has happened to me? An old version of me would have been curled up in a little ball, like wanting to leave this planet. But this me is walking through with faith. This me, come on, is walking through with confidence. This me has a hope on the inside that can't run out because can't nobody steal my joy. What has happened to me? I'm different. I'm different because you didn't stop with what has happened to you. Can't nobody steal my joy because my joy is not based on a circumstance. My joy is based on a person, and his name is Jesus. Come on, right now, right where you are, would you lean in with me for just a second? Because there's some of you I'm talking to right now. And the idea of having joy that can't nobody steal sounds great. There's only one problem. You don't know the person I'm talking about. Maybe you've heard about Jesus, you've heard his name. Maybe you've been to church, maybe you go to church. Great. The only way you're gonna have a joy that can't nobody steal is when your joy comes from a person named Jesus, who gave his life for your sin and mine so that we could be made right with God. And when you recognize that he has saved you and that God loves you, that God has purpose and plan and destiny for your life, that he will be with you in every season of life, it brings a joy to the inside that brings purpose to every pain. And if you don't know Jesus right now, I want you to make a bold decision and to trust him by faith. Come on, if that's you, wherever you're watching at right now, I want you to repeat this prayer with me and to invite Jesus into your life, to invite Jesus to save you from your sins, to invite Jesus to lead you on a journey that will have difficult moments, but your joy will never be stolen. Would you pray? Repeat this after me. Every person say, Jesus, today, I recognize that my joy is found in you. And today, I receive your forgiveness for my sin. Come and live on the inside of me. I will follow you from this day forward as you show me how. Father, forgive me, save me, and help me to live for you. In your precious name, amen. Amen. Come on, if you just prayed that prayer, Christ lives on the inside of you. And I would love for you to do one simple, powerful thing. Would you, right now, open up that Believing app and grab the yellow card that's there? You'll find it on the Sundays tab of the app. And if you will simply fill out that yellow card, and about halfway down, there's a place for you to mark it saying, I'm making a fresh commitment to Jesus. Come on, this may be the first time you've ever accepted Jesus. This may be a refreshing in your faith. Whatever it is, I would love to send you something via email and kind of help you take your next step. I believe this is the greatest decision of your life. Not only that can't nobody steal your joy, but that now you know Jesus personally. Come on, everybody in the chat as well. If you're excited for those who have trusted in Jesus today, come on, would you clap your hands right where you are? Come on, would you shout? Would you say, yeah? Because can't nobody steal our joy.